All right, all right. I didn't even test my microphone or anything. I hope this is working. This always makes me super nervous. You just never know when this thing's going to work and when it's not. All right, good morning. Good morning, everyone. See, we got a couple folks on. Hope you're all having a fantastic morning. Um, as always, I hate repeating this, but you never know when we have new viewers. So, so if you're catching this from any other platform other than YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you'd run over to YouTube after this video is done, after we're done talking here, and go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It would help us out tremendously. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, I have been this past week. I really this one was kind of tough to come up with this week, admittedly, but I was just super busy. But I thought we'd talk about market cycle this week because just some things that we're seeing in our own business and amongst our students. There's definitely some things going on that I think we all need to be really aware of. And really, everyone's heard of market cycles, and I think pretty much everyone understands um, and knows that we go through these things uh, periodically. And so, obviously, obviously, we operate on a bell curve, and the question is, the question that was posed this week was, have we peaked? Have we peaked on the bell curve? And the answer to that question is yes, it is. Hold on, I got to silence this thing. All right, but the answer to that question is absolutely. We have peaked. So let's talk about this a little bit, and I'll throw the chat up here. If anybody wants to ask a question or uh, has a comment, uh, and I'll try and keep an eye on this because a couple, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, we got trolled pretty hard. It was kind of comical. But all right, so let's jump into this thing. So what should we be doing right now as real estate investors? Should we be rehabbing properties? Should we be wholesaling? Or should we be, is it wise right now to pick up properties for, say, our rental portfolio, our buy and hold properties? So, like I was saying before, we operate on this bell curve, right? So we have these peaks and we have these valleys, and oftentimes I don't have a one of those little Wacom tablets where I can draw this out for you. So you're gonna have to kind of follow my finger here. So we have these valleys. We go up to these peaks and valleys. Essentially, what it ends up looking like is, at least in the real estate industry, what we see is we have a if we start at a valley, we go up to this peak, right, and then we're going to have a down tick, and then we're going to rise up again. Real estate has traditionally, it's maintained a kind of a, I don't want to say a 45-degree trajectory, but it's always risen. We've always seen this appreciation. So in 2011 was at the very lowest very bottom of that valley in that market cycle. so so in 2011, we had really just dirt cheap prices on properties. We could pick them up. We're coming out of the big real estate crash of 2008, 2009, 2010. So we had tons and tons of inventory, right? So right now, where we stand right now is at in 2022, we are now creeping over. We've got the top of the bell. We are now just creeping over where we've crescendoed. Now we're just starting to get on to the slope, the other side of that bell, and we're starting to come down. We can definitely see that in our markets. So, we had a nice 11-year run there of just this awesome environment to be in if you're in real estate, and particularly investors, we had had a lot of folks picking up properties at significant discounts, and really just being able to capitalize on these rising prices. Now, I had this has been a few weeks now, but I had someone, and actually I experienced this myself. Just it's so hard to predict whenever we're going to see that peak. It's crazy hard to predict. And so, we go back to say 2018, 2019, when everyone thought that was the peak of the market. And, some of those folks ended up pulling out, and tell you, it's not that they lost, because, we had we had greater values in 2018, 2019, but 2022 was bananas. I mean, it was, I've been in the business for 7 years, and I haven't seen anything like that. So that was relatively new to me. So now we are headed down this little, on the other side of this bell. And here locally in my market, we peaked out in right around July, August timeframe of this year. So we started to make this little transition into a buyer's market, what they call a buyer's market. And that just means, if you're ever confused about what that means that it's more advantageous to buy properties because of the declining prices. It's more advantageous to buy those properties in a buyer's market. All right. So, but like I said, it's going to be super impossible to predict how long we're going to be in this downward trajectory that we're heading in right now. So the big question is, what should you be doing right now? I don't know. The biggest part of my audience is, hey, Miguel, good morning. The biggest part of the audience that watches these things probably understands that in our business, and particularly, and this is really kind of what we push in our coaching program as well, is, we're cash flow people. We love passive income. I like being able to sleep in the mornings if I choose to do that. I don't normally do that, but if I choose to, I can do that because I have passive income. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't wholesale properties. We don't do rehabs. I mean, we do all of that stuff. And so question is, what should you be doing right now? If you're watching this and you're a wholesaler, it might be a good time to really, really start firing up those marketing engines, as they say. But the big one is, I'm doing a rehab right now. I always have a rehab going in the background. It's kind of just, I really like doing rehabs. I really love to see the whole transformational thing. It's less of a job to me. Rehabbing is. I know that might sound a little bit strange, but it's true. Let me make sure that I am picking everything up here. Okay. Yep. All right. So rehabbing, should you be rehabbing right now? Here's what I would tell you. I would say that if you're doing a rehab right now, or if you're thinking about doing rehabs from this point on, I think you should probably, and this is the strategy we're going to take, I think you should probably start finishing up your rehabs and getting them on the market. You probably have a good 3 to 4 months before we start seeing this major shift into this buyer's market where prices, the price that you want to sell your property for is going to decline. You're going to start seeing a significant decline. We're moving into it in a lot of these flyover states, and a lot of states that experience harsh winters. We always have a slowdown. So, and it's been proven time and time again, if you're in a state that has these, maybe the 4 seasons, and you have harsh winters, it's just a fact that we have to deal with the wintertime slowdown. And we kind of build our rehabbing projects, we kind of build that into it. So we like to time our projects through the winter so that we can sell them in the spring, because we always have a spike in the spring. Excuse me. If that's not, if you're not in any of one of those types of markets, or I'm sorry, one of those types of geographical areas, it might not affect you as much. But I would say right now, you've got about 3 to 4 months to get your projects finished up, get them put on the market before we really start seeing a decline in prices. All right. So what does that really mean? All that means is that um, we're moving away from the major rehabs, and we're going to start doing quick flips. So the idea here is you want to be in and out as fast as you can possibly be. All right. What does that look like? I would say um, be into something 30 days or less, 45 days at the absolute max if you can. So that means things like paint and flooring, just really easy stuff. No major renovations, right? And you're going to have to be able to get these properties at a pretty significant discount. All right, because obviously we've got a spike in material costs, although those are coming down a little bit. But the major problem that we're going to have is moving into, I don't want to say recession because I'm not an economics major. I'm not an economics expert. But with inflation where it is, and we're starting to see this creep into this buyer's market, it just makes sense to get in and out as quickly as you possibly can. All right. And then, like I said before, things are really going to start picking up for wholesalers. I'm already seeing this in my market. A lot of the deals that I take down, a lot of deals that I buy are from wholesalers. Excuse me. And so I think it's definitely picking up. I'm getting more and more traffic from wholesalers, sending me their deals, and I really appreciate that. You just got to be super careful if you're if you're buying from a wholesaler. Uh, you just got to be super careful, and really pay attention to your market and what those properties are going for. Or it's really tough to comp those properties too, because we've had this crazy market for the past year and a half, 2 years, and all we have to base our comps on are those properties that sold in that time period. So it's really tough to comp them. Really, when you have such a major shift like this, what you really need to be looking at is not necessarily, and I'm gonna catch flack for this, I know, but not necessarily the historical data over the past 1 to 2 years. You got to kind of look at what is available right now. It was this whole philosophy was shifted when we were rising, when the prices were rising, and it was the same concept. Is prices were rising so fast that it just didn't make sense to go back and look at historical data when prices were extremely low. So you have to kind of look. You have to take a snapshot of what's happening today, and then you're going to have to correct your pricing, correct your offers to meet the demands of right now. I mean, that's how fast it's shifting. So again, no major renovations. Wholesalers, start firing up your marketing channels. I mean, I think there's going to be a total boom for wholesalers coming up. Not that the past couple of years didn't provide that as well. I mean, if a wholesaler could get a hold of a property at a decent price, boy, they could really capitalize just because of the price increases. Now we're moving into the volume part of the equation when it comes to wholesaling. We're going to start seeing more and more distressed properties, more and more distressed property owners, and so you're going to have to pick up your volume before you can make up for it by pricing alone. You can make up for any kind of the lack of inventory. You can make up for that because of the pricing volume, or for the pricing of these properties and appreciation. Now, heading down the bell curve, heading down the other side, it's going to be more about volume. You're going to have to pick up more properties because your prices are going to decrease. All right, so wholesalers, fire up those marketing channels and prepare to invest in your marketing. Start fine tuning your systems because, like I said, you're going to need more volume to earn eventually. We're not there yet, but in the next, I don't know, 3 to 9 months, your volume is going to have to increase. So start fine tuning your system so that you can handle that volume. And then the last category, obviously, is the buy and hold category. Should you be buying and holding properties, whether they be for a rental portfolio, or in my case, a seller finance portfolio? And I'd say the answer to that question is empirically, absolutely. You should always, it's always a good time to buy and hold. You just have to be careful, right? But even at these higher interest rates that we have, we're going to compensate by that with those higher interest rates. We're going to compensate. We're going to start seeing purchase prices go down, right? So it's checks and balances all the time. So even at these higher interest rates, prices are going to start dropping out. The weird thing is that while that's happening, kind of running concurrently, rents are really staying about the same, and rents really started peaking out right around the same time that obviously that this crazy market peaked out. So over the past year, I think we've seen a 10 to 15% increase in rents over the past year. And that's not to say those rents can't come down, because they can, and they probably will. But right now the rents are staying about the same. So I often say, I tell this to our students a lot, if we can get financing at 6% or below, it's still very, very cheap money. I mean, it's not outrageous to pay 6%. It's just not what we're used to. We're used to seeing these super low interest rates. But 6 to 7%, you're starting to get into a little more cost there. It's definitely not as cheap as the 4.5, 4.25, and 5% that we were seeing from commercial lending previously. But really, when you hedge this against inflation, it is still very, very cheap money. It's super cheap money. So, and really the big thing is, even if we have people that are borrowing money at 6% from a lender, from an institutional lender, well, that's why this is called investing. You're gonna invest a little bit up front, and over time, you're going to be able to. Those interest rates are going to drop again at some point. Maybe it's a year out, maybe it's 2 years out. We really don't know. But at that time, you might be paying 6%, but in the future, you're going to be able to refi those properties at a much cheaper rate, and you're just going to explode your cash flow. So I wouldn't be super afraid of buying and holding the property right now. It's just, obviously you're going to have to get a better price for it. That's all there is to it. That's how you're going to compensate, right? So I will tell you, just be prepared. If you're going to be a buy and hold investor, be prepared to hold on to your properties a lot longer than you normally would. For me, that doesn't bother me at all. If I hold on to my portfolio for 30 years, I'm totally fine with that. I'm in it for the long haul. So, but we will start to see a rise in the market again at some point. So just prepare yourself for holding on to properties a little bit longer than what we've been required to do in the past. And then lastly, on the buy and hold front, I highly recommend. I mean, this is why you're probably seeing just a ton of advertisements for creative financing and all this. What is really ironic to me is everyone that you're hearing a lot about creative financing from they were wholesale gurus, and they're jumping on this bandwagon, right? But I will tell you, we've been doing this since day one. It's been a part of our creative financing, been a part of our business from the very, very beginning. Literally the beginning. The first properties I ever bought were on creative financing. But I would say that right now, if you look at the interest rates we've had over the past 10, 11 years, we've got an excellent run of extremely low interest rates, right? So if you can start picking up those properties, say subject to, well, I mean, now you've just built, not only have you got the best prices, because prices are starting to go down, right? But you also have the absolute lowest interest rates. And by that, I mean, when you're picking up property subject to, if that's the way you're going to go, or the way that you can go, um, you're picking up a property at 2.5 to 4%, something like that. I mean, that is just it's just a double whammy. It's just like you've got the best of all worlds. So that's why it's so important to understand this creative financing stuff. And that's both getting creative on the buy side and the sell side. Everyone tells you that, and you'll hear this a lot. Everyone will say that, you make money when you buy, and that's partially true. But if you have the ability, if you understand how to structure deals on the sell when you sell, particularly, well, I mean, we have different exit strategies. So, if you're going to be a straight landlord, this is probably not going to apply to you very much. But for me, I sell or finance all of my single family properties, right? So actually, these higher interest rates are helping me out, because now I can actually go out, if I'm going to sell a property on seller financing. Now I can compete. I can actually compete with institutional lending. So I can compete with the FHA loans and the VA loans. I can compete with those interest rates now. So, or at least it's much easier. I still charge higher interest rates. I charge a premium if I'm going to sell or finance someone, but it kind of takes, if somebody were to, try and go qualify for a loan from a bank, they're going to see that interest rate, and then they're going to look at mine. They're going to go, well, this is very, very comparable. And, I also don't require people to, there's no prepayment penalties or anything like that. These folks can go out and refi if they want to. But it just makes it a little bit easier for me to be able to compete. So, yeah, I know that's kind of a long-winded way of saying, if you're not studying creative financing, if you don't understand how it all works, this is a primo time to really start to incorporate this into your business. I mean, it really is. And it doesn't matter what your exit's going to be, but you need to, the whole goal here is to capitalize on those extremely low interest rates. And that's mainly through subject to. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. If you have seller finance deals, you can compete there as well. So if you're going to if you've got a free and clear property, let's say, you got a free and clear property, and your seller has agreed to seller finance that property to you. Well, now you can go out and you can say, and of course that, maybe that seller is motivated, maybe they're not. The point is that now you've got higher interest rates from, through bank financing. So really, you can really use that as a negotiation tool with your seller and say, Mr. Seller, I know you might want this cash flow from this seller finance deal, but I can just go to a bank and I can pay 6% on this money, and I can just buy it with cash outright. And a lender's or I'm sorry, a seller, that's going to be that's going to be an advantage to you, because now you could actually negotiate that interest rate lower, where you can't do that with a bank. So, yeah, I would really, really advise starting to get into this, into the creative finance world. I really would. And, like I said, we run a coaching program. It doesn't have to be with us. I would just tell you, go out and start learning this stuff and start incorporating it into your business. So, if I've got any questions here, guys, don't be afraid to throw them in the chat there. Let's see here. Let me make sure I've covered everything. Let me pull my checklist up here. All right, I think I've got everything. So let's recap this real quick. We talked about the bell curve. We are on the other side of that bell curve, right? So now is the time to, if you're rehabbing properties, let's start wrapping those up and getting those put on the market, or however you're going to dispo those. The key is prices are starting to drop, so let's get those things, get those finalized, get all of those projects done, and get them sold. I know that's what I'm doing. I've got a rehab going right now. That's exactly what we're going to do. It's going to be done here in the next month and a half, and it's going to go straight on the market, and we're out of it. And to make up for that, we're going to be looking for quick flips, in and out as fast as you possibly can be. No more than 30 days hold time. And don't forget, you're going to have to start getting much more significant discounts on these. All right. Don't do no major rehabs until we start to see a few changes in the market. Wholesalers, start picking up that marketing, start increasing that marketing, increase that ad spend, get out there and start fine tuning your systems so that you can handle more volume. Because as prices drop, you're going to have much more availability, but also you're not going to be getting, generally speaking, you're not going to be getting paid as much. That's the general rule. It's not the case all the time. And then finally, rental portfolios. It's always a good time to buy. Make sure you're getting good prices on them. If you're using bank financing, it's totally fine. Interest rates are 6 to 6.5% right now, at least in well, that's everywhere pretty much. But if you hedge that against inflation, it's still very cheap money. Don't be afraid to borrow that money. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see banks drying up, banks stop lending like we did in the previous recession. And even if that's the case, let's say that happens. The very last item that I have here, and the most important one, is start learning this creative financing thing. It's if anything, worst case scenario, this is just a tool that you can put in your toolbox. But I really do think this is going to have a significant impact on your business to learn how to structure these deals. So, all right, so that's really all I've got for this one. Short and sweet, right? That was I think we're half an hour in. If anybody has any questions at all, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to get your hand raised, and then if I have to, I will. If I have to, I'll wait for you to type it out. But so let's, by all means, go ahead and dump your question into the chat box, and we'll get it answered for you. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So, all right, so Miguel, if you're still there, I hope you have a good day. And I see we've got someone else on here. You guys have a fantastic weekend. I think that's all I got. Do me a favor, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on Facebook, head over to YouTube and just look up Sub2 Empire. In fact, why not just look up Sub2 Empire on all the different social media platforms? We're the only one out there with a name like that, and you can join us on all of those platforms as well. All right, guys, that's all I got. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll catch you later.